How late is too late to launch a new career? In this video, author Amy Poeppel talks about publishing her first book at age 50 and how her newest novel, The Sweet Spot, comedically celebrates all the women who take control of the twists, turns, thrills, and spills of life. Hello, it's Angie from HEC Books, where we talk with authors about their latest titles. Make sure to click the subscribe button to see all of our latest conversations, and stick around to find out how Amy Poeppel managed to find humor even in one of the saddest chapters of her life. Amy Poeppel, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
I have to say, when I finished this book, I was so sad because I had to say goodbye to the characters.
I love hearing that from readers. It's one of my favorite things that people tell me, is that they feel like they've made friends when they read the book. And also that they're sad to say goodbye to the house that's in the book.
Yeah.
The people and the place.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, there's such well-developed characters. I just wanted to know more about what happens next with them. Yep. And do any of your characters ever come back, or have you ever considered, will we get to see Melinda ever again?
I always think about that. I love books with sequels. I just read Andrew Sean Greer's sequel to his first book, Less. If you haven't read that one, it's fabulous. And then he just wrote a new one called Less is Lost. And when I read that, I thought, maybe a sequel would be a good idea. But I don't have anything in the works right now.
Okay. So we can keep our fingers
Yes,
crossed, maybe.
definitely.
Well, I have to say, as a mother, the comedic chaos that happens in Lauren and Leo's home, in ways, it makes you feel better, because sometimes you're like, well,
Yes.
at least it's not that bad.
Exactly.
Right?
I wanted to give that couple a beautiful place to live. And I love the brownstones in Greenwich Village. That's my neighborhood. I walk by those beautiful brownstones all the time, and I just wonder, what's happening in there? But when I decided to give this couple and their 3 children a brownstone to live in, I didn't want their life to be too easy. So I decided to make it an unrenovated brownstone. I decided to give them the worst appliances ever, a mouse up on the 3rd floor. I just wanted their life to not be too easy.
Yeah. Well, you did a good job of that.
Yes. Add a totally rambunctious dog.
Right.
Add a grandmother who comes for a hot minute but then just never leaves. That's sort of what I think theatrically when I'm writing. So for me, it's like a set. It's sort of like a Broadway set. And I just think, who do I need to bring on stage and off stage? That's the way my brain works.
That makes a lot of sense, because when you read it, you feel like you're watching a play or watching a movie. I could totally see it playing out.
Yes. I have a little background in theater. Really, I never made much of it. I found out that I had a very narrow range in my acting abilities. I was living in Boston at the time, but I'm a Southerner. So if there was a Southern comedy, if there was an audition for that part was mine. I was going to get that role. Anything else, not so much. I had a hard time. I just didn't have breadth in my acting skills. But I read plays all the time, and I did enough theater that I just love it. And that's just, in fact, my first book I wrote as a play. And then I turned it into a novel.
Oh, really? Well,
yes.
So that's interesting. You came to writing.
Yeah.
Your first book was published when you were 50?
50 years old. Yeah, this is a brand new career for me.
But what's great is, you have incredible life experiences that you can use,
Yes.
right?
Yes. I tell people all the time, whenever somebody says at an event, I'm thinking of writing a book, is it too late? I think quite the opposite for writing. I think the more crazy jobs you've had, funny people you've met, interesting experiences you've had, weird places that you've moved to, any of that just adds to the well you can draw from when it comes to writing. So to me, all the things I did before, acting, that worked its way into my second book. Teaching high school English has worked its way into my books, working in schools, raising kids, all of that. Living in different places, all of that material finds its way into my books.
And you worked in a private school, right?
I did.
In admissions?
I did. I worked in New York City in a private school. I worked with kids applying to 5 through 12.
Okay.
And it was just a really delightful career and helped me for writing for a couple of reasons. And one was that I just met so many fascinating people in that job.
I can imagine, yeah.
And the children were so funny. To interview a kid applying to 5th or 6th grade, they are sometimes so scripted, and they know just the right thing to say. And other times they say the one thing their parents told them not to say, and they'll actually say, "Now my mom told me not to tell you this," but, and it's just so funny. And the other thing that was useful about that job was that every day I would interview a child, parents, a child, the parents. At the end of the day, I had to write it up. Who was this person? Who did I just spend 30 minutes with? And then the parents, what were they like? The idea being that 3 months later, somebody who'd never met these people would open the folder, read my write-up, and get a good sense for who those people were. And that turned out to be the best writing exercise in the world, because I really had to think about my audience, who's, the person who's going to read this later. It's not just for me, it's for someone else. Mm-hmm. What words do I need to use? What quotes that the child said should really make their way into this? What do I need to leave out because I don't want to mislead anybody? So it was a really fascinating writing exercise that I think just helped me. It really helped me a lot.
Let's talk more about The Sweet Spot. So for this book, for people who haven't read it yet,
yes,
can you just give a quick little description of how the book reads?
It features 3 women of very different ages who don't know each other at all at the outset of the book, but very quickly come to find that they have every reason in the world to despise each other, and ultimately have to sort of come together when a child that does not belong to any of them ends up in their care. And it's a comedy for sure. I love reading all kinds of books. I love mysteries. I love sad books. But what I bring to fiction, or what I try to bring to fiction, is humor. So it's definitely a comedic look at a family in a big falling apart house, right, and the neighbors, and how their different stories all come together.
Can we talk a little bit about Melinda?
Yes.
So as I was reading it, I thought, oh my goodness, she must have been so fun to write. So Melinda's a scorned woman,
yes,
and she does basically everything that any scorned woman probably has wanted to do.
Yes.
She does it.
And she actually does it.
Yeah.
Melinda's my age, and at this point I have so many dear, wonderful friends. We've all been through a lot of things. We've all been through a lot of challenges, wonderful experiences, just different kinds of hardships. And one thing I've been noticing in myself and in them is how much rage we have. And I think rage is really fun to write about and fun to read about, because like you said, some people might want to do some of the things Melinda does, but we get to just watch her do it because we don't actually want to act that way. I really wanted to give this scorned character a chance to pull herself together, to regroup, to realize that maybe the rage and revenge aren't helping, aren't making her feel any better. And although her ex-husband may deserve it, spending all of her energy on that isn't helping her. Mm-hmm. And I just loved giving her a new story and some hope for her future, and not changing. I never like my characters to change personalities, but I do like them to come out in a better, hopefully happier place.
So where did this idea come from? How did this begin?
So it really did begin with Melinda. It really did begin with my own feeling of reaching my age and realizing how good women are at so many things, and how strong women are, and how able women are to reinvent themselves, sometimes in the face of hardship and sometimes just because of life circumstances. And I'm sort of endlessly fascinated by that. And I just sort of want to pat women on the back for their, you become a mother and everything changes. Mm-hmm. And you have to adapt to that. And I'm just sort of blown away with how well women do that.
Yeah.
That's kind of where the book actually started. Yeah. And I gave these women each changed circumstances, and then I got to sort of play out how would they react to that.
The men in the book, there's some interesting men in the book, but the father figures do come out in this as well.
Yes.
And I wondered, I know your book is dedicated to your parents and their memory.
Yes.
And at the end you mentioned that you wish your dad could have read
I
it.
do, yeah.
He was your biggest fan.
He was. Yeah, and speaking of the thing that I always try to do, which is find humor in heartbreak, which is something that I try to do in my life all the time. No matter what happens, I try to find some way of seeing the absurdity in it. I wrote some of this book when my dad was in hospice, like just sitting next to him. Like I was sort of working, and my sisters and I would find things that we're just absurd and hilarious in our moments. And it's never to undermine the difficulty. But I can't help but feel that in the same way that revenge might not make you feel better, when does laughter not make you feel better? Laughter is good for us. I just think it's healthy. So if there's ever a moment where I can somehow find the joy or humor, even in the heartache, that's what I strive to do for myself, and that's what I try to bring to my books. But yes, my dad was my biggest fan, and he would have loved this one.
We hope you loved this conversation. If so, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe for new content. Watch part 2 of this interview where Amy Poeppel talks about her writing process and why after completing her novel, The Sweet Spot, she threw it out and completely started over.